Hello and welcome to coverage of Grand Prix Philadelphia. Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Ben Stark, and we are underway. It is round 4. Zvi Mowshowitz, you call him an old school Hall of Famer, Ben.
Yeah, won a Pro Tour in 2001, several top 8s from back, all from back in the day.
All right, and a hopeful Hall of Famer in John Stern here, though he's got a little ways to go, but a great start to his professional career.
And I think he's been around a long time also, with a lot of great finishes, just not really the Pro Tour top 8s.
That's right, and he's really impressed me of late. A lot of solid finishes. Won a Grand Prix. He beat Josh Utter-Leyton in the finals. And Zvi's come out to a quick start here with Loyal Pegasus and Nyxborn Eidolon. A nice 1-2 punch. All three colors here for John Stern as he plays Servant of Tymaret, which is going to be a nice blocker in this situation.
Yeah, a guy I really like. I like cards that are kind of like two-way players, I call them. They attack well, they block well. And Servant, even though he's a 1-3, he attacks pretty well because he can regenerate and then he can drain when he untaps. They lose a life, he gains a life.
Yeah.
So he can be an effective card in a stalemate just by turning him and draining for a point of turn. He can be an effective blocker as a 1-3 regenerator, can block small things or big things if you have the mana to regenerate.
Now look at John Stern is calling the maybe bluff. Maybe he just doesn't care here, but Nyxborn Eidolon has attacked and it's going to pick up Mortal's Ardor.
Well, assuming that John has more things to deploy, he's not really worried about his 1-3 regenerator. He put it out on turn 3 as a 1-3 to block, and now he'll go on and make other things.
Okay.
Let's suppose his hand was mostly land, then he probably wouldn't make that block.
Gotcha. He would want to untap, use his mana wisely to start regenerating. But he did block. Mortal's Ardor took it out. We noticed that Zvi, A, misses his land drop, and B, can't play anything else this turn because he used half of his mana on that Mortal's Ardor. So if John can come back with a nice stabilizing play here, he'll be in pretty good shape.
Right.
Voyaging Satyr is his play, and he passes the turn. So is he going to block again?
I mean, he's probably going to block considering he already has 4 lands out.
Okay.
But, we can't see John's hand, and maybe he has an Elspeth in it, and then he's not going to block. He's just going to play Elspeth, you know what I mean?
That's right.
It does depend on John's hand.
Okay. So Zvi does attack with both creatures again, and John does block again. Happy to try to run Zvi Mowshowitz out of combat tricks. And Zvi plays another Pegasus, so this one's of the cavalry variety.
Right.
We're working on getting our camera tack sharp for you here, but it looks like we've made it a little worse perhaps as I'm getting a headache, so yeah, run back over there, Rashad. He gave me a look and he's running back over to get that thing properly adjusted.
And it does look like John has plenty of ammo, although I can't make out the actual cards in his hand. He doesn't have any more land in hand. It looks like all spells.
Yeah, he's going to play a Leaf Crown Dryad. No bestow here. He's just going to run it out there. He's got a couple of untapped mana looming there as well.
Yeah.
And Zvi not in a great position, though. He finally has hit his third land drop here, but that Leaf Crown Dryad is going to do work against Zvi's board right now. And Zvi, Ray of Dissolution on the Leaf Crown Dryad is going to take it out of there, gain Zvi 3 life, and drop John Stern's life total down to 13.
Yeah, and if there's one thing that we know at this point in the game, right, it looks like neither of them have land in hand because they both missed a land drop.
That's right.
So it's going to be interesting to see because there should be a lot of firepower from both players.
John rips a swamp for the turn and plays it. Now he's hit that critical 5-drop slot, and he's going to have a lot of options available to him, presumably, here.
And you can see him thinking, and I don't think John's a slow player, so I'm sure he's considering several different options.
Right. It's been weird, though. I mean, he's had 4 mana for like 2 turns in a row and only used half of it each time.
We can see, like, Lash of the Whip, I think that is.
That is what he has in his hand there.
So he's debating, like, his options aren't great probably because he doesn't want to lash a Cavalry Pegasus.
Yeah, even though it effectively takes out the Loyal Pegasus, at least temporarily.
Temporarily. If John had a good 5-drop, like, say, Nessian Asp, he would certainly play Nessian Asp here.
Sure. All right,
so
here's 5 mana. Lash of the Whip. And he's just, look, I think he figures the longer this game goes, the better it is for me. And so let's see if Zvi can add to the board because effectively he has nothing right now.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying it was wrong to lash that. I'm saying he doesn't want to do that. That's why he's so in the tank because it's like, is it really right for me to trade this 5-mana card for this 2-mana card here?
Exactly. And he decided it was correct as Zvi misses yet another land drop and passes the turn back to John. So John draws his card for the turn and surveys the scene. I mean, he's looking to just turn this game on Zvi as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, the way John is playing this game, I get the impression that he has something either powerful in his hand or that he just has bad options.
Like he's got like a Nyxborn Wolf or
Yeah.
something that he just can't really maximize on.
Right. He has either like little bestow guys that like aren't going to do very much, and he wants to wait with them, or he has some powerful 6-drop that he can't cast yet.
Okay. He casts nothing, passes a turn. Svi rips exactly what he needs with his planes to get his Wingsteed Rider online and also turn on that Pegasus. And John just did nothing for that turn. His turn 5 was nothing. Land, go. Really interesting. There it is, Nyxborn Wolf. I wonder if he just drew that or if he was being stubborn. You know, I wonder if he was like, I want to get something better out of this Nyxborn Wolf, and now he's like, all right, I can't wait any longer. I've got to put something on the battlefield here.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it could be right to wait. He might have drawn an additional bestow creature.
Oh, okay.
So now he's playing one, knowing he can bestow onto the other. But if he was holding just one, he doesn't need a random 3/1 ground creature.
Wow, and here's Svi hitting his land drop and playing Ornitharch this turn. So Svi really pressing his advantage here as John's turn has had just the clunkiest. I mean, even after Svi missed like 3 or 4 land drops.
Yeah.
Just had such a hard time deploying anything.
And this is why I always preach good mana and good curve and everything like that, because a lot of games are won and lost when by being able to punish the opponent for when they miss a land drop.
Yes.
It's not all about having better cards than the opponent.
Right. So John kicks off things with an attack with this Nyxborn Wolf, and Svi immediately just takes it.
Are those blue cards in John's hand?
I didn't see. Was there a Nimbus Naiad or something?
I couldn't see well, but when John shuffled his hand at the end there, it looked like there might have been 1 or 2 blue cards in it.
Okay, we saw a Temple of Plenty from John, but that could have just been a tap forest for him, right? I mean, we don't know. You know, it could have been his Scry Forest.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing John because I haven't seen his entire pool.
Sure.
And this is sealed deck, not constructed, so you don't get to choose what you open. And the players are 3-0, but John is a pro, so he had 3 buys. So for all we know, he may have no better options even than to play 4 colors or, you know, what have you. These aren't the trial winning deck lists. These are in their first match of the tournament.
That's
John
right.
and Svi.
John plays for team face-to-face games. We're going to take a quick look in at our secondary match. I'm not sure who that is on the right. The hat guy, I don't know. On the left, though, it's Ben Friedman and Shahar Shenhar. Okay, that's Ben Friedman apparently on the right. Looking, I don't know if he thinks he's in Hawaii here or what happened, but he's ready in case the sun breaks out. But Shahar Shenhar on the left there.
It's always sunny in Philadelphia, right?
Nice. Nice job.
I've been hanging around Luis.
Yeah, I know. That's what I felt. So Shahar looks like he's got a pretty nice board here with Ordeal of Perforos on his Cavalry Pegasus, and then there's also a Traveling Philosopher just kind of hanging out.
Wow, that's 5 counters on the
That is 5 counters on the Skyguard.
That thing's been targeted quite a bit.
Which is insane. Shahar just targeted Ben with the 3 damage, and he plays a Skyguard, which I'm assuming is a chump blocker at this point.
Most likely.
That's an 8/8 flyer.
Yeah. that's big.
Kind of going off.
Yeah.
Yep. It looks like he has the Nyxborn guy, Dauntless Onslaught, and
Battlewise Valor.
Battlewise Valor, which have all hit that thing. Yeah, without life totals, it's hard to get super specific about what's going on here. We're just taking a quick look in while our main feature match finishes sideboarding.
Yeah.
Svi Moshowitz taking a pretty quick game 1.
John is playing blue.
John is playing blue. Is he blue-black?
Well, it's a splash, but he's
Oh, he's splashing blue.
Yeah, he's 8 swamp, 6 forest, and 2 island.
Okay.
Along with Traveler's Amulet and Temple.
Okay.
To make up the mana sources.
But the temples, which temple? He's only got the 1 temple.
Just
that
the one temple that you
which
saw.
Splashes, which is green-white.
Yeah.
All right.
Only 2 blue cards, maybe a gold card or 2. This is kind of cool. It's a lot tougher figuring out your opponent's deck while you're playing than
just having some. Yeah, they just hand it to us. It's nice.
Yeah. Oh, he's got a Phoenix. That's what he's splashing for Phoenix, Oracle's Insight, and Retraction Helix.
Okay.
A lot of people really like Phoenix. I don't. I don't know.
I think Phoenix is sweet.
It's powerful, but a lot of people are aggressive, and it doesn't block
no.
unless it's on.
No.
And it doesn't kill creatures.
No,
so.
but it is in a color combo that is pretty good at keeping aggressive decks at bay long enough to get
But if you're
advantage.
already keeping them at bay, can't you just beat them with a flyer that could have also
Sure.
helped on the games where you're on your back foot?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I like those cards too. Like
no, I know, but compare Phoenix to a replacement level 5 drop. Let's say like Precinct Chimera.
Prescient Chimera, yeah.
Yeah, games where I'm on my back foot and I play the Chimera on turn 5, I can block with it and it might be enough to stave them off and allow me to win, right?
Yeah.
Games where I have control, I can kill them with the Precinct Chimera. If they're an aggressive deck, they probably can't stop a 3/4
Sure.
flyer. Compare that to Phoenix. Games where I'm on my back foot, Phoenix doesn't help at all, can't block at all.
It's
I just
true.
Further behind.
Yeah, I mean, what you get out of it is you're paying for the uniqueness factor, basically, meaning that, like, so the game's somewhat stalled out, where your Prescient Chimera is reasonable but not great, right? And instead you play it and you say go, and your opponent has 1.5 turns, or they're dead.
Oh, sure.
And they have to kill you right now, and if they do nothing else, they just lose.
Sure, it kills way faster than a Precinct
it
Chimera.
just has that huge punch, and it can get around, like, not letting them draw their snake or not letting them monstrous it or whatever. And it's a trade-off. I mean, I think those cards are fairly close.
Right.
You know?
I mean, I agree that it kills way faster than a Precinct Chimera, but I just feel like against aggressive decks, I'm going to win those games anyway because we're already in the late game where I want to be. A Precinct Chimera is already a nice addition to a stalemated board.
Sure.
Where, I mean, don't get me wrong, Phoenix has its place, like in the control mirror against a deck with a ton of removal where they would just kill my Chimera and I beat them with Phoenix. But anytime I'm playing against a normal creature deck, I don't like cards like Phoenix in those spots.
Yeah, I certainly tend to agree with you. I mean, normally I'm on the other side of this argument, so it's funny to listen. Everybody's always telling me how sweet their card is, and I'm always telling them how they should just play this common instead.
Yeah,
so
how it's just
it's a little refreshing, I have to say, to hear you say this. But Svi starts off. Is that a mountain?
Yeah, looks like he switched colors.
Oh, he did the old switcheroo here. So he's going to step up his speed. I think he probably noticed that John was stumbling around on his mana, didn't have a whole heck of a lot to do, and maybe he's taking an even more aggressive take on his list here, though. John off to a nice start with a turn 2 Voyaging Satyr on the play and 4 mana available this turn.
Yeah, and good call. I do that a lot in sealed. When you have a mediocre sealed, it doesn't have to be horrible, but not awesome. Very frequently you have 10, 12 playables in one color with your rare, but then your second colors are fairly interchangeable, And then in those situations, I'll readily switch them all day. Like, if I see my opponent has flyers, I'll board into my green for my 2 Shredded Wings. If I see my opponent has great enchantments, I'll board into my white for my dissolves. I'll frequently play with my second color in sealed. I mean, from Zvi last game, most of the cards we saw were white.
Yes.
We saw Ornithark. We saw the Loyal Pegasus, the Cavalry Pegasus. We saw the Combat Trick. So it seems likely that Zvi's main color is white, and that he can maybe substitute black and red interchangeably.
Yep, and so he's adjusting the speed, basically, of his deck here, and it looks like he's gone quick. God, what is, John Stern's deck just has not been firing on all cylinders. I mean, you have the turn 2 Voyaging Satyr against nothing.
Yeah.
And you think you're in good shape, and his play is to make a 2/1.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can take a look back at the deck list, but frankly, from what we've seen so far, it just doesn't look very good.
Maybe it's just a stinker, huh?
Yeah, that's,
it's sealed, like you mentioned. You don't get to choose.
Right. It's not a knock on John if his pool wasn't very good.
Absolutely. And it does feel like his pool might not have been very good. Now he's going for Karametra's Favor on his Nyxborn Eidolon. I mean, once that sentence comes out of your mouth, your deck isn't, like, amazing.
No. That card is mostly only good for targeting heroic guys because it's a cantrip enchantment. But I'm not usually too happy to turn a creature into a Birds of Paradise.
Right.
The reason a Land of Welfare Birds of Paradise is good is because it's one card, you pay 1 mana for it, maybe 2 mana for it, and then it accelerates you. If you have to pay an additional 2 mana and turn your 2 or 3 drop into a Birds of Paradise,
right?
It's not exactly.
We're not living the dream at that point. And
it's not too strong.
This looks like a 2-for-1, but it's not really.
No, he cycled the.
He got his card
favor.
back. So still, though, it's going to take some utility away from John Stern. Kill a creature, which is the only profitable block that he has right now on the archetype of aggression, and also take a splash mana away potentially.
And Svi, being a very, very, very smart individual, probably figured out last game that he must have a splash. That's why he switched to the more aggressive color, like you said, because John had 4 and 5 mana last game and cast almost nothing. So if I'm Svi there, I'm assuming he has cards in his hand he can't cast.
That must be the case. And here's the Necrobite play. So John Stern just going off here. Gets to kill a creature.
Yeah.
By incurring fair amount of risk here. But
yeah. And what John does communicate there is that he doesn't actually need the mana at all, because he could have saved his guy from the bolt with the Necrobite, right? But instead, he chose to let that guy die and kill the archetype of aggression with the Necrobite.
Yep.
So
John still does take a little bit of damage on that play, but not a ton. And here we go. Now we're talking business, John Stern. He gets an Essien Asp on the table.
Right. And that's a really solid guy, the exact kind of guy a deck like John's needs.
Yeah. Really one of the premier commons in the whole entire set.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good in draft, but in sealed, could be number one. I'm not sure.
It's
in
fantastic.
Sealed, it's excellent in sealed.
Here's a Cyclops of One-Eyed Pass now for Svi. That thing can tussle with this snake at least temporarily. And also potentially can enable attacks with the Pegasus, though with the snake out there, that plan's not long for this world.
But generally, decks like this are where I like the Cyclops. As I was talking about when we looked at one of the trial deck lists, we already seen a Bolt of Keranos. So Svi is an aggressive deck, presumably with a couple of ways to clear the way for the Cyclops.
Now, we were talking about one of the best commons with Nessian Aspen. I have to say that John's follow-up play is one of the best uncommons around, I think, which is Keepsake Gorgon.
I agree completely. Definitely could easily be the best uncommon in Theros, Unlimited. If not, it's roughly tied with Foundling's Leader, a few of the other quote-unquote mythic uncommons.
Right, yeah.
Oh, look
Interesting.
Look at this little combo.
I've never seen this one in sealed before.
I play a lot of Limited. I've never seen this at all.
So that's Gift of Immortality.
Yeah, but you can play the Gift if you have a lot of heroic guys to target. And Svi's white, so presumably he does. I doubt the Gift is in there just for this potential opportunity.
Right, so Gift of Immortality, for those of you that haven't seen it, which I figure probably most people haven't, is an aura enchant creature. When the creature dies, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, and then return Gift of Immortality to the battlefield attached to that creature at the beginning of the next end step.
And so it goes especially well on a high power, low toughness creature because you're no longer worried if your creature dies.
Right. Now, the downside to this card is twofold. First off, it doesn't count as casting the spell when it comes back, so it's not like you're going to trigger heroic every time or something.
No.
And the other downside to it is that there is an opening. For example, if John were to block here, he would have a turn or an opening of time where he could cast an instant and kill that Cyclops, and then the Gift doesn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, but at that point, the Cyclops still comes back, right? So the only way you can really get 2-for-1 is if they have a bounce spell.
Yes.
Which is the real downside to playing something like Gift, because if you play it and then they bounce your guy, you got 2-for-1. But Svi may have boarded it in, seeing John wasn't blue. Or Svi may have just not boarded it out, seeing John wasn't blue.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's how I feel about the Gift. If my opponent is blue, you can't have a Gift in your deck, you know? And heck, we can take a look and see if Svi started it or not.
All right, there's a Blood Toll Harpy for John Stern. And John's gone into battle mode here. It looks like he attacked with everybody. There was no available blockers, and he seems content to just throw a race into play here.
I'm not sure there's much of a choice.
Yeah.
You can't really block the Cyclops because it's just going to come right back.
And John's going to take the old read here. I always say this in the booth, but it does occur to me every time, which it's just funny that, like, the new players, the less experienced players, perhaps maybe a player that's not quite as good yet, they will often read cards because they don't know them. And then the mediocre, or not mediocre, but the mid-level players, the PTQ grinders, the guys that come out to GPs but haven't quite broken into the next level, they refuse to read the cards because of the ego. And then the really, really good players always read the cards again.
I guess it's a compliment. I read cards all the time.
Yeah, it's just it's the circle of life,
Yeah. Yeah, I want to make sure I didn't forget what something did if it's something like Gift that I don't see that often.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you know exactly what it does, exactly what it's going to do. It's what you just said. It's very similar with calling a judge. Not so much to try and rules lawyer or something, but to find out how things work. I very frequently call a judge and ask them a question, and they look at me like, how could you not know this, Ben? Right? Like, but, if it's not something that I've seen on Moto, I might think I know how it works, but I might not be sure. And I might save myself a game-ending mistake by simply calling a judge and asking them to explain how something works, asking them a question.
And the downside to doing that is nothing.
Nothing. You get the time back and everything.
Yeah, you get the time back and everything. There's just no... But, ego comes into play, pride, like, of course I know it. I'm a Magic player.
Yeah, no, you got to throw that stuff out the window. I mean,
agree.
The only thing that, that ever affects my ego is if, I play poorly. But not if I don't know how cards work, not if you know, I need to read a card to refresh myself on what it does. You know,
Right.
that's preventing myself from playing poorly, from doing, which is what I actually feel bad about usually.
That's right.
You know?
Now, Svi plays a Farragex Giant post-combat here, and John really tanked out whether to pay tribute or not. He decided he would pay tribute. That leaves John with a 5/5, leaves Svi with a 5/5, but John at a much more comfortable 7 life as opposed to being
It's
at
a really
2.
tough spot because more often than
Yeah.
not, you'd rather take the 5 damage and have the Giant be smaller, since Limited is mostly about the creatures in play.
Right.
But when you only have 7 life, you know, you can't necessarily afford to throw another 5 away.
That's right. I mean, any burn spell kills him at that point. The problem, though, is that the 5/5 effectively blocks very nicely here, where a 3/3 would not.
So it's a difficult decision.
Ah, there's a Sedge Scorpion, though, so that'll be a speed bump at least. And that's Ashiok's Adept.
And that was one of the really interesting decisions for John, because if he had taken the 5, he would still be attacking profitably and chump blocking like he's basically going to have to do anyway.
Yes.
But he would be in burn range.
That's right.
So he's basically saying he thinks he can win this game even if that thing is a 5/5.
Right.
Even with all his pressure removed.
Right, and I mean, of course, the Scorpion is going to be part of that equation because it's going to dissuade attacks from the Farragex Giant, but he has to deal with this now very annoying Cyclops of One-Eyed Path.
I mean, it seems like the plan is going to be chump blocking until he hits 7, at which point he can start monstrosing the Keepsake Gorgon and the Nessian Asp.
Right.
And then he'll be able to swing the game.
That's right. And Svi plays a Crowan Skyguard and a Bronze Sable, so 2 relative non-plays for this stage of the game, though John Stern really just needs to find a way
He just needs land, really.
Yeah, to get up to 7 mana. Now, I think he drew a Lash of the Whip here, though, which would solve the problem of the Cyclops of One-Eyed Pass, you know, if he's willing to throw maybe the Sedge Scorpion in front, wait till it's sitting there without its protective gift of immortality and then fire it off.
He's certainly going to do, because he's not going to chump block with the Voyaging Satyr or either of the other 2 creatures, because they're such powerful creatures. Last turn he thought nothing of throwing the Ashiok Adept in its way, because that card basically doesn't do anything at this point in the game.
Right.
Here we've got to imagine that he blocks with the Sedge Scorpion and then he lashes it when it comes back.
Right. That seems to be the line of play here. Now, there's some ways that Svi can interact with this and make it pretty annoying for John, but nothing really great. And from Svi's perspective, he certainly doesn't have to assume that John has a removal spell. That's probably the block that would be made anyway. And there it is. Lash of the Whip takes down the Cyclops, and John Stern looks to be nicely stabilized, and he even just ripped a second black mana source, moving him ever closer to that magic number of 7 so he can start firing off monstrous abilities and taking over this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's in his hand, but if he doesn't have anything to make this turn, it's still super close, because if he blocks the Giant this turn with the Keepsake Gorgon, he loses the Gorgon before he can monstrous it.
Right.
And he doesn't want to just take 5 since he's at 7, so we're going to have to see what else he can drop.
Okay. Looks like a 5-drop. Oh, Baleful
That's
Eidolon
big.
on
That's
my
big.
Asp?
Yeah.
Yikes.
That makes it bigger than the Giant.
It does. It makes it bigger than the Giant. Still has Death Touch. It's just the biggest brick wall possible here. But Svi just jams it in there. I mean, there's definitely cards like Rise to the Challenge that Svi could have here that matter.
Yeah, but John has no choice but to block here.
Right.
If that Voyaging Satyr was a different creature, I don't know.
Okay.
But firing off the monstrous on the Keepsake Gorgon is more valuable than having that Asp live. And you still get the Baleful Eidolon even if the Asp dies. And he can't take it because anything that would kill the Asp will just kill John if he doesn't block.
Exactly. Like
So-
except for, yeah, I think maybe just Rise to the Challenge is the only one that.
Isn't that +2/+0?
Yeah.
So that would kill John.
Oh, I
John's
see what
7.
you're saying. If he doesn't block at all.
Right.
Understood.
So John
Sorry.
definitely had to block. It was just a question of
Yes.
exactly what with.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure I like his block there. Even
Okay.
though he got blown out, you know, rather than put the opponent on exactly Ray of Dissolution,
Hey, where's his Baleful Eidolon?
it got Ray of Dissolution.
Oh, it got Ray of Dissolution.
And then
sorry.
the Giant ate the Asp.
Sorry, I was looking at you talking about that other thing.
No, sorry. And as bad as that stinks, like he still gets to monstrous the Keepsake Gorgon now. So in the event that Svi had exactly that, which was kind of a blowout,
Yes.
this block might not have been optimal.
Uh-huh.
But you're not looking at your opponent's hand. And if Svi had just had any pump spell instead of the enchantment kill,
Right.
this block is much better than
Okay.
trading off your Keepsake Gorgon for it.
And this isn't a bad spot at all now, because now the Keepsake Gorgon's big enough to block the Giant on its own and kill the Flyer.
Right, and Svi must have another trick, because I know he's not suiciding that 5/5, because
Right.
he knows the Keepsake Gorgon's going monstrous.
That's right. But John just doesn't have a choice here.
I mean, he's at 7.
Now
It's just like last turn. Anything that would kill, for the most part, most of the things that would kill, like Battle-Wise Valor, that would kill the Keepsake Organ here would also kill John.
yeah, and it also kills. The Giant is dying here, though.
Right.
So this works out pretty nicely for John, right?
Works out all right for John.
He gets a 2-for-1 out of that. He gets to kill the other thing. He gets 3 cards for 1 there.
Yeah, but don't forget the previous turn he got 2-for-1 by
That's
that
right.
Ray of Dissolution, and he had to chump block once.
Right.
It's a pretty balanced game, really.
Indeed. This is going to get interesting, and we have come down to just 2 lowly 2-drops facing each other down.
Yeah.
In the late stages here, this is game 2.
And if those two traded off, there would be nothing in play, and those two are capable of trading off.
They are. This is kind of funny. And they do trade off, so we're down to no non-land permanents, but an Akroan Hoplite will represent some amount of pressure against John Stern, though not a super immediate one, only 2 power attacking if that's all he's got. And John plays his land and just ships the turn back, and here's 2 damage, dropping John Stern down to 5. What's the follow-up play? John's thinking anything but Ornithark. All right, Laganaban Elder
John needs a
represents
creature.
lethal damage. He needs something here, or Svi is going to win this match 2-0. He does. That's going to do it. John Stern couldn't find enough lands early and then found too many late.
I think the most interesting decision of that whole game was whether or not to take 5 damage, pay the tribute
Yes.
for the Giant. If he does take the 5, I don't know if Svi had any direct damage, so he might have been able to continue attacking. But Svi did have Battle-Wise Valor and Ray of Dissolution, so it would have been really interesting.
Yeah, it would have been.
I don't know what would have happened.
That was a super close one, but John Stern decided that he just did not want to go down to 2 life against a player playing red.
I definitely understand. When you're sitting with a Nessian Asp and a Keepsake Gorgon, you're thinking, I can win this late game. I
Yeah.
can beat that 5-5. you
Right.
know?
Which he did, but then he lost to what was left over. So here's, this is Shahar Shenhar versus Ben Friedman here. Ben Friedman ran out of clean clothes, so borrowed some from his dad.
Tommy Bahama.
Got that Tommy Bahama gift card. Put it to good use. Shahar Shenhar's on what looks to be quite an aggressive red-white deck. We saw an Ordeal crack off earlier.
And look, Ben switched colors too. He was white-blue last game, right?
Right. So here's Ferris Band Tromper, and there's that Skyguard again. Looks like it's underway. Last time we flashed in here, it had 5 counters on it. Right now it's only got 1, but it's doing an admirable job of holding Shahar's Air Force at bay. And it looks like, yeah, we're in the early stages of a game 3 here, Ben, so we get a nice one. Shahar's ranked 6 on our top 25 pro rankings.
Current world champion.
That's right. You mentioned you played against him in the top 4 of that tournament.
He beat me in a very tough blue-white-red mirror match in Modern in the top 4
What
of
an
that.
intense match that was, too.
Yeah.
The whole tournament, you know, it just has a different electricity to it.
Oh, it was great. It was the most fun I've had playing Magic.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping to get back into it this year.
Well, the fact that you're sitting next to me means that you had a heck of a lot of good GP finishes and put you in a good spot to snatch one of those spots.
I did, but my 2 Pro Tour finishes so far are a top 50 and a top 100. And while those are respectable showings, they're not really a whole lot of pro points.
Okay.
So I'm kind of right on the cusp. If I didn't do well in the remaining Pro Tours, I'd finish with 46, 46 pro points, which I think might be just on the outside looking in.
Okay.
But hopefully I can put up 1 respectable Pro Tour finish this year and solidify my way in there.
All right. Your fans will be watching. Nessian Asp for Ben Friedman after attacking with his Ferris Band Tromper. And things look like they're getting a little out of control here, but that's a nice play there for Shahar to help get him back into this game. He makes a 4/4 flyer.
It doesn't even make it big enough to attack past the Asp.
Gosh, it doesn't,
does
it?
I don't know if he wants to trade it for the Tromper or not, but if Ben's got any trick, this is going to blow up.
This is looking ugly here for Shahar Shenhar.
Yeah.
Classically, the aggressive deck 1 step behind.
Yeah. This is what I feel like happens most times in Seal when people go for aggressive strategies. I mean, if your opponent just has mid-sized creatures, you don't quite have the curve and tricks you need to really make it through.
Yeah, and here we go. Everybody into the red zone, and Ben Friedman is representing like 20 different combat tricks with 5 untapped mana, 4 cards in hand.
And clearly, like, he has some of them because this isn't an all-out bluff. Shahar almost needs to block.
Uh-huh.
Shahar, this is why Shahar's thinking so long. He's like, well, if I take 10 and go to 5, he's still got the tricks. What am I going to do next turn? You know?
But he doesn't have any really great blocks. The one you mentioned before was putting his Akron Skyguard in front of the Tromper, because this is the one window of opportunity that he has to try to make a clean trade.
But grows.
It's not going to happen anyway.
Well, but clearly if Ben's attacking with a Skyguard, he's got a trick.
Right.
Because he's not suiciding that 2-4 just to deal some damage here, I don't think. So, I mean, Shahar knows he's pretty out of it, basically.
Okay.
It's just a bad situation.
So Shahar looks like he's going to preserve his life total by blocking the Ferris Band Tromper.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Shahar's doing here is he knows that he can't really beat much else on the board plus tricks, and he knows Ben has tricks. So he's just hoping Ben has only tricks, and then maybe he can untap and have a Divine Verdict next turn or something to maybe get him through the tricks.
Stem the bleeding.
Yeah, something of that nature. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly Divine Verdict, but that hopefully Shahar has tricks of his own.
Right.
And hopefully they're the right tricks to maybe trump whatever Ben has.
Uh-huh.
Because if he puts that 4-4 in front of the Skyguard or the 4-4 there, and Ben plays a trick, I mean, Shahar's out. He's out of gas.
He's done. Yep. You'll see this often in this format as well, where somebody will block one creature when he has multiple blocks available to play around, something like a Dauntless Onslaught. But here, Dauntless Onslaught just crushes him anyway.
And when we flashed in Game 1, I think we saw a Dauntless Onslaught in Ben's graveyard.
That's right, we did.
But if I'm Shahar, I'm not sure that I can play around Dauntless Onslaught because it's just too much.
Nope, it's too much. And plus, Ben can be like, sure, take 8 or take 6 or whatever.
I think if I'm Shahar, I'm putting him on like a Battle-Wise Valor, thinking maybe like he has to have a trick, so maybe I can beat a basic one like Battle-Wise Valor,
Here's Favored Hoplite is a follow-up play for Ben Friedman. Shahar's going to attack him for 4. Friedman falls to 15.
Yeah. General good rule of Magic, just for everybody at home. If you can't beat a card, it doesn't exist. Just play like it just doesn't exist at all, no matter how likely it is they have it. Because if you're going to lose to it anyway, no sense in playing around it at all.
That's right. All right, Ferris Band Tromper triggers. It's inspired, gets a counter. And Ben Friedman just has to decide how he wants to get through this. You do see that Shahar left up 5 mana, but that is no problem for Ben.
Well, I'll bet Shahar has a trick or two, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. I mean, he's already at 9.
He's taking 4, 5, 6, 7 damage on the board right now as he blocks the Tromper.
Yeah. It looks like all Ben's trying to decide is whether to go for lethal while Shahar's mana is up.
Wow, reap what is sown. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 extra damage this turn, and that should be lethal. And that's going to do it. Ben Friedman gets by Shahar Shenhar. Certainly not who you want to see paired up against in the early stages of a GP, but he is able to defeat him.
No, and I like Ben's deck a lot. Did you see the look of Ben's deck?
Yeah.
It was aggressive in that it could attack because it had tricks, but the creatures were mid-sized.
Okay.
And the small